I was driving home. It was a normal day. I get off work at 7 p.m. every day and live only 5 minutes away, so I'm usually walking through my front door by 7:05 a.m. The weekends are different. Instead of going home and sleeping, I go home, change, then go pick up my daughter at daycare. And today was the weekend. My daughter was in the back seat. She was talking like she always did about her day at daycare, her friends, the playground, everything. I barely listened, not because I didn't care, but because I was just so damn tired. Every time I leave work, I feel like I'm falling apart. I can barely stay awake. That's why I chose this apartment, just 5 minutes from my job. I get home, crash, and sleep. There was a ladybug today at the playground. My friend Jeremy let me play with his Hot Wheels. I got to pet a cute dog, Delilah said excitedly. Yeah, that's nice, I mumbled, half asleep behind the wheel. Over and over, like a broken record. That was the first time she mentioned the dog. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but after that, she wouldn't stop talking about it. Every ride, every weekend, she'd bring it up again, this dog she saw and would pet. She'd go on and on about it, telling me I should come see it. Daddy, you should visit the dog someday. Come on, see it. I never liked dogs, I'll admit. They always unsettled me. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's something about their instincts, something I don't fully understand. Or maybe it's from some old buried trauma I've never really faced. I've always preferred cats. So of course I'd just nod and say, someday, Delilah. But deep down, I knew that day would never come. I could never bring myself to go near that dog. One day after working a double shift, I didn't get home until around 9 p.m. I was completely drained, barely able to keep my eyes open, let alone find the energy to play with my daughter. It was nearly her bedtime anyway. Still, I picked her up from daycare and started the short drive home. Delilah was cheerful as ever, chatting from the backseat about her day, more stories from the playground, more excitement than I could process in my half-asleep haze. Was all I could manage. I was just so tired. But then, through the fog of exhaustion, something she said cut through. Daddy, she said softly, almost like it was a secret. The dog followed you home today. I blinked and glanced up at the rearview mirror, meeting her eyes. He was under your car, she added, her voice calm. He was watching us drive. Strange, I thought, but that couldn't be right. When I left work, I didn't see any dogs. The roads were empty. Then it hit me. Delilah had been at daycare all day. She wasn't with me, so how could she have seen a dog following me? I brushed it off as a kid, just making up stories for attention, and went on with the day. By morning it was Monday. Her mom always picks her up before I head to work, so she was already gone by the time I got back. My apartment felt too quiet. I missed my daughter, living with her full time. But her mother and I just couldn't make things work. Too many arguments, too much distance. Still, I won't lie. Sometimes I envied my life before I became a father. The freedom, the extra income, the quiet. But I loved Delilah. That was never in question. I often had to fight just to get more days with her, more time to hold on to something good. It makes me feel sick to even think it. How could I feel that way when all she ever did was love me? The week passed by as usual. Nothing strange, nothing out of the ordinary. I was just looking forward to the weekend, looking forward to seeing my daughter again. By Friday, I was too tired to think, just counting the hours. But something was off. Normally, I come home, collapse on the couch, and fall asleep without thinking. But that night, I felt restless. Not alert, not awake, just unable to settle, like something was buzzing beneath my skin. So I decided to keep myself busy. Chores, anything to fill the silence. I stepped outside to take out the trash. It was already dark. The air was cold and damp, thick in that way that makes even familiar places feel eerie, distorted, like the world had gone just a little sideways. I walked slowly with the bag, lifted the lid of the trash bin with one hand, ready to toss it in, when I heard it. a sound I hadn't heard in years, but instantly recognized. Claws. The soft click-clack of claws on concrete, heavy, deliberate, like something large was approaching. I froze. My heart skipped. I turned toward the sound. Nothing, just shadows stretching across the driveway. But I felt it, that cold, crawling sensation on the back of my neck. Then the sound again, closer this time, by my car. I snapped my head around toward it, and there it was, a shape, a shadow, tucked low beneath the frame. I couldn't see it clearly at first, but I knew it was there, watching, still, waiting. I squinted, slowly crouched, and leaned down to get a better look. My chest tightened, my breath caught in my throat. A dog? As I'd suspected, sort of. It was under my car, but something was wrong. Its body was just slightly off, too long, too still. Its legs were bent at unnatural angles, as if it hadn't moved in hours. And its eyes, dark, glassy, soulless, like two lumps of coal staring back at me. It didn't blink, it didn't growl, it just stared. I stepped back and immediately muttered to myself, "Great, not a dog, ugh." It was the way it stared at me, like it wanted something, like it was trying to make me understand. Food, water, attention? Too bad. Annoyed, I grabbed a bucket near the trash bin and hurled it toward the car. "Shoo! Get out of here!" I shouted. The thing scrambled out from under the vehicle with unnatural speed, legs moving wrong, too quick for something that size. It bolted into the street, but right as it hit the middle of the road, it seemed to go limp for just a second, collapsing. Then it started crawling again, dragging itself across the asphalt until it disappeared into the bushes on the other side. I huffed, shaking my head, and went back to finishing the trash. God, I was so sick of stray animals around here, always causing problems, digging through garbage, darting into traffic, spreading disease. Just a nuisance. Tisk. But as I turned to head back inside, something stuck with me. The way it crawled. That moment when it went limp in the street, then dragged itself across the pavement with jerky, unnatural movements. I had seen it before, somewhere. I didn't know where or when. It clung to the edge of memory like a dream I wasn't ready to remember, but I knew it. That crawl, that limp, that moment where something living moves like it shouldn't. I swallowed hard, shook my head, and told myself I was just tired. After all, I had probably seen it in a horror movie or something. The next morning, I had completely forgotten about the dog, brushed it off like a weird dream, nothing worth remembering. I went about my day like normal, drove to work, endured another horrible, long, exhausting shift, then came home just long enough to change out of my uniform before heading to the daycare to pick up Delilah. As I pulled up to the school, I rolled down my window to wave at her. She ran up smiling, laughing, full of that boundless energy I just couldn't match. I forced a smile and unlocked the door. "Have a good day, kiddo?" I asked, not even with enough energy to lift my voice out of its flat, monotone drag. She nodded eagerly. "Yeah, it was great. I played with Jeremy again. Me and Michelle pretended to be part of a wolf pack. We made up stories under the playground." Ah, that's cute, I thought. But then, without changing tone or expression, she added, "And the dog came back today." "Aha," I mumbled, almost on instinct. Then it registered. My body tensed. "Dog? What dog?" I asked, even though I already knew. Delilah tilted her head, puzzled that I'd even question it. Your dog, the one that sleeps under your car. He's always waiting for you, Daddy. I blinked at her, my throat tightened. Delilah, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. Set is no dog. I think you're just imagining things, sweetheart. She just smiled back at me, like she knew something I didn't. He told me he's not mad anymore. He just wants you to come see him. I looked straight ahead and gripped the steering wheel a little too tightly. My palms had started to sweat. That's enough with the dog stuff, okay? I muttered, trying to sound annoyed instead of afraid. It's not funny, okay? And don't pet that dog anymore. In fact, if you see it, leave it alone and pretend it's not there. Delilah looked at me, then lowered her head and began softly humming a sweet tune to herself in the back seat. I could feel a hint of sadness in her. She didn't say anything, but I could tell she was disappointed that I didn't care about the dog. Disappointed that I wanted her to stop talking about it, like I'd ruined something important, something only she understood. I know kids love animals, but that dog clearly had rabies or something. The way it moved, the way it watched, it wasn't right. I didn't want Delilah getting too close. I didn't want her getting sick or worse. And if it really had been under my car, I could have hit it without even knowing. Just thinking about that made me stomach turn. We drove home in silence. It was only a 5-minute ride, but the quiet made it feel like much longer, thick and uncomfortable, like the air had changed. And in that silence, my thoughts started spiraling. He's not mad at you anymore. Was she talking about when I shooed it away? When I threw the bucket at it? That had only happened last night, and I didn't tell anyone about that. There were no neighbors outside, so how did she know? I glanced at her in the mirror. She was still silently humming to herself. She couldn't have known about that. We got home like usual. I unlocked the door and held it open for Delilah. She hopped out of the car, clutching her stuffed animal tight, her mood shifting again back to joy. She was already bouncing with excitement, happy to be home, talking about which toys she wanted to play with first. Although I couldn't shake the unease. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just a kid being a kid, probably making things up. Or maybe I just hadn't really listened to what she said earlier. I was tired. That was all. Just tired. That's what I told myself, naively, maybe even desperately. As I followed her inside and shut the door behind us, she ran inside shouting, "Yay!" started rummaging through her toy box. I let out a sigh and began taking my coat off. I hung it on the rack, then began walking over to the kitchen, ready to get myself some coffee. Then I saw them. Wet paw prints across the tile, leading in from the door and disappearing into the hallway. Too large for a cat, and they weren't just muddy, but damp. Like whatever made them came in out of nothing. Like it never should have been there to begin with. No starting point from anywhere in particular. I stared, frozen. My breath caught in my throat. I began slowly following the footsteps, and in the middle of the hallway was Delilah's stuffed animal. Not the one she walked in with, another one. One I actually haven't seen in a while. It was dirty, matted with grime, like it had been buried somewhere. The fur was damp and discolored, and one of the eyes was missing. I stared at it, confused. Then I heard it again. From somewhere down the hall, I heard the low sound of claws dragging across wood. Click, click, click. Then it stepped out, just for a moment. From the edge of the hallway, half lit by the warm glow spilling from the kitchen light, it emerged. The dog. If I could even call it that. Its body was all wrong, too long, legs too thin, patches of fur hung off like it had been rotting in the dirt. Its mouth hung slightly open, not panting, but gaping, as if trying to speak. Its eyes, those same soulless brown eyes, locked onto mine, and it smiled, exposing its teeth, way too many teeth, teeth growing out of random places in its gums. No sound, no movement, no retreating footsteps, and we just stared. It stared at me like it was trying to remind me of something. I couldn't breathe staring at it. I couldn't blink. We just stared at each other for a few minutes. Then, as silently as it appeared, it stepped backwards, one leg at a time, almost mechanical. It disappeared into the hallway, being swallowed by the darkness. It stayed frozen in place, too afraid to follow. Suddenly I remembered where it walked. It was heading toward the living room, towards Delilah. Panic shot through me like lightning. My body moved on its own. I bolted down the hallway, with adrenaline rushing through me. Without thinking, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my keys, slipping them between my fingers like makeshift brass knuckles. It was the only weapon I had. My footsteps echoed against the floor as I turned the corner into the living room. Empty. No dog. No movement. Just Delilah, sitting there on the carpet with her stuffed animal in her lap, a few toys scattered around her. She looked up at me and smiled sweetly, like nothing had happened. I turned away from her and began trying to catch my breath. Clearly, there was something wrong. I was tired and must have started seeing things. There weren't any muddy footprints anymore, and every door was locked. I let out a final deep sigh as I turned to walk toward my bedroom. But before I could move, Delilah spoke. "Daddy, he said it's cold where you left him. He said it hurts." I froze. The air felt suddenly thinner, like the room had lost its oxygen. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Something in her voice wasn't right. Not afraid, not sad, just empty. Like she was just passing along a message that wasn't hers. I immediately turned around and rushed into my room, slamming the door shut as I sat angrily on my bed. I closed my eyes. I knew. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't spoken a word about that night, but I knew what it was now. That night, I was tired. It was late. I had just gotten off work, got changed, and went to pick up Delilah. I remember how heavy my eyes were, how loud the silence in the car felt. I remember drifting off, with only the blur of the streetlights making its way into the cracks of my eyelids. And then I saw a shape in the road, a small, low-to-the-ground shadow, and before I knew it, a loud thump as body met steel. I felt my car jerk up as it rolled over the shape. Immediately, I slammed on the brakes and sat for a moment. The world had gone still. Oh God, no, what was that? Jesus Christ. I slammed my fist onto the wheel angrily. Of course it's me. Bad things always happen to me. I finally opened the car door and walked to the front of the car, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I saw fur. Dark, matted fur. A dog. It has to be a dog. I stared at it, knowing there was no saving it no matter how hard I tried. I panicked. I dug. Out by the old tree behind the property, my hands shaking, my head spinning, I buried it. I never looked back, just drove. No. God, no, the dog, it can't be. I gripped the sides of my head, pressing my palms into my temples as if I could squeeze the thought out of existence. I mean, I don't even like dogs. I laughed, short, bitter, hollow. Jesus. But the more I said it, the less I believed it, because I remembered the fur. I remembered how warm it still was, and I remembered how small the shape looked in the road. I shook the thought from my head, numbly peeled back the covers, and crawled into bed like I was trying to escape into sleep. The next morning came too fast. My body felt heavier than usual, like I hadn't slept at all. I got Delilah ready for daycare like I always did. She was in her usual good mood, humming to herself while holding her stuffed animal. I tried to act normal, forced a smile, packed her lunch, buckled her into the back seat. The drive was quiet, the sky was gray, and the roads were still slick with morning dew. I kept my eyes fixed on the asphalt, knuckles tight around the steering wheel, my thoughts a blur of guilt and disbelief. As we pulled up to the daycare entrance, I got out and unbuckled her seatbelt. She leaped out of her chair and gave me a big hug. "Goodbye, Daddy, I'll see you later," she said brightly before skipping off towards the school entrance. I sighed and gave her a soft wave before noticing the teachers, one of the daycare staff, had come out to check the drop-off list. She paused when she saw me, her expression uncertain, almost nervous. Another teacher by the door leaned over and whispered something to her, glancing in my direction, just staring at me. I brushed it off and turned around, ready to get back in my car. Then I noticed it. The sidewalk was muddy from the rain the night before, and Delilah's shoes should have left their usual little patterned prints behind her. But they didn't. Where her feet had touched were paw prints, not just vaguely shaped, actual dog paw prints, with long, wide claw impressions, almost exactly what I had seen in my apartment. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, but they were still there. Delilah turned and waved at me once more before stepping inside. She didn't notice or say anything about it. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me, but I could still feel it. Something off in the air, like static, like watching a dream start to slip through your fingers the second you try to hold on to it. I shook my head and hurried back to the car, trying to avoid eye contact with the staff still watching me. As I got in and shut the door, I just stared at the steering wheel. I didn't drive off right away. My head was racing too much. I was confused. I kept trying to think of solutions. The dog, the footprints, Delilah. What the hell is happening? Is it trying to speak to me through my daughter? What exactly does that damn thing want? My breathing was shallow now. My fingers gripped the wheel so tight it ached. I closed my eyes, but the image of those paw prints stayed behind my eyelids, pressed there, branded, like it was following me, getting closer, piece by piece. "No!" I shouted, snapping my eyes open and jamming the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life, and I hauled out of the parking lot, tires screeching slightly on the pavement, thoughts crashing into each other as I tried to talk myself down. Maybe they were just confused because my wife usually drops her off. Maybe there was a dog walking there before Delilah stepped in the same spot. Maybe I trailed off, jaw tight, because no matter how many excuses I came up with, none of them felt right. I drove to work just on reflex, but the entire time I was still thinking, sweating, and feeling like I was losing my mind. At work, I was fidgety and paranoid, constantly checking over my shoulder like that dog would just appear in the break room. Any noise I heard or shapes I saw in the corner of my eyes would frighten me. I couldn't imagine what it wanted, and I worried about what it could do or might do to my daughter. All I knew was something was wrong. Deeply, violently wrong. Eventually, the clock hit 7 p.m. It was time to pick Delilah up. I left work fast, barely remembering to clock out. My hands were slick on the steering wheel, my pulse pounding. The sky was gray, and it was lightly raining down. Each sound of the raindrops hitting my car gave me anxiety. I pulled into the daycare lot. Everything looked normal. Kids waiting by the doors, parents chatting and picking up their kids. But Delilah wasn't there. She was usually standing in the exact same spot, ready for me to pick her up. My heart sank. I got out of the car and ran up to a daycare worker. "Hey, I'm here for Delilah." She stared at me, losing her smile. She let out an annoyed sigh before speaking. "You've come here before, asking about her. We told you then, too." My chest tightened. "What are you talking about? I come here every weekend. I pick her up at 7. I just dropped her off this morning. You saw me." She glanced back at another staff member behind her, then leaned in a little, voice barely above a whisper. "Delilah told us you left something." The words rang in my ears, louder than the rain. I stared at her. My mouth moved, but nothing came out. She stepped back slightly, still watching me, like she was waiting for me to understand something she didn't want to be the one to say. I turned around and walked slowly back to my car, the rain hitting harder now, soaking through my jacket. And there it was, across the lot, at the edge of the woods, the dog, staring, silent, still. I didn't need any more signs. I didn't need more dreams, more messages, more footprints. I got back in the car, turned the engine, and drove. Not home, not to the police, but to the spot behind the property where the old trees leaned sideways like they were trying to fall away from the truth buried beneath them. I parked, left the car running, walked into the brush. The rain made the dirt soft, easy to dig. No shovel needed. My hands clawed through the mud, soaked and shaking, pulling at the earth like it owed me something, like it could undo what I had done. As I dug, the smell hit me. Sharp, rotting, familiar. It curled in my throat, burned my eyes, and it wasn't long before it hit flesh. It wasn't rotted yet, not decomposed like it should have been. I stared down into the grave. "I don't know what you want, dog. Do you want to be reunited with your owners? A proper burial?" Then, as I stared, I noticed something. The flesh, it wasn't furry as a dog should be. It was pale, like skin. My hands trembled harder, and I panicked and began frantically pulling more of the dirt away. A pink sleeve emerged, a small shoe, and then a tiny hand, curled. Not paws, but fingers. I froze. A noise escaped my mouth, something between a gasp and a sob. "No," I whispered. "No, please, no." The sweater was hers. The shoes were hers. The little body beneath the mud was, "No, God, no, what? No, what is this? The dog? Where's the dog? I know." I scrambled backward in the mud, choking on the weight of the moment, slipping and clawing at the ground, like it could undo what I was seeing. "It was a dog, I swear, it's supposed to be a dog. I hit a dog." I shouted into the storm, voice cracking, tears swelling in my eyes as I stared at the corpse. I looked around me, then rubbed my eyes, but still, the body didn't change to a dog. Shouted again in disbelief. "No, please, no, tell me it isn't true." But there was no answer. Just the rain, just the silence, and the body I had tried so hard to forget. Lying in the dirt, it was her, Delilah. I killed her and buried her and convinced myself it was a stray because I couldn't live with the truth. And she knows I left her. She knows I didn't call anyone, didn't scream for help. And when I felt her body go cold, I told myself it wasn't her, that it couldn't be her. So I dug a hole, shaking, crying, and put her in the ground. That's why the dog watched me. It was just always waiting, patiently, for me to acknowledge it. Because it wasn't there to haunt me. It just wanted to remind me it was time.